What's good, YouTube? You know who it is. It's your boy Neon Diamond 101 back again, talking about Degrassi Next Class Season 3, Episode 3. Hashtag worst gift ever. Now, we start off the episode with this cross country team. I believe this is the first time we've seen them in Next Class, and I'm not sure if they were ever in TNG, probably, but I don't really remember. I'm not really too caught up with my Degrassi sports teams, though. There's hockey, um, volleyball, basketball, um, football. I think I mentioned that. I don't think there's ever been a Degrassi soccer team, which sucks because I love soccer. Yeah. Anyways, enough about that. So the cross country team are in the woods. They're training. Shay's kind of surprised that Esme is like way ahead of her, and it's kind of surprising to us because obviously we've known Shay to be like an athletic beast. So after they're done, Armstrong tells them to cool off and stretch, and Tiny asks for a kiss because he's there supporting her, like a good boyfriend, and she sits on his lap and kisses him, and then goes to stretch. But then Esme comes with a snarky comment, says, she's like, "You brought your," I think she said something like, "Oh, you brought your monthly visitor to practice or something," and I'm like, "What?" And then we pan down, and there's like this blood splot, wow, this blood spot, probably the size of like a quarter on Tiny's pants, and I'm like, whoa. And then Shay's freaking out, and she's like checking behind her, and she like retreats with Frankie, and she's really embarrassed. And so in class, she really feels like really like embarrassed, and she like apologizes to Tiny. She's like, I can buy you new pants. He's like, don't worry about it. Close your eyes. I have a gift for you. And I'm like, okay, this is maybe he'll give her something that'll make her like laugh or feel better. No, he gives her like I think a pack of like pads and then like a pack of tampons. I'm like, Tiny, what are you thinking? And like you can see like Shay, like she literally wants to die, and she's like, well, what the hell? And she's like, he's like, did I do something wrong? And he said, Esme said, so I guess he like tried to get advice from Esme, or Esme told Tiny like, hey, you should probably give Shay some tampons. She would love it, knowing that she'd hate it. So, like I mentioned, it seems like Esme doesn't really like a lot of people. She seems like a mean girl. So, I enjoy we're seeing little bits of her. Like last episode was like a full A plot of her, and now she's kind of having like a B plot where she's like scheming. So pretty much, in the locker room or somewhere, Shay gets really schemy with Frankie, and she's really pissed off. So in class, when Esme is presenting, um, Shay spills like some dye, some red dye on her seat, and then Esme sits on it, and she immediately like notices. And at first, I thought she wouldn't notice, and then she'd walk around school with blood. But no, she immediately notices, and she calls her out. And what does Shay do? She doesn't deny it. I'm like, I thought she was gonna be like, wasn't me. Oh, she's on her period. Haha, everyone look. No, she said, but she embarrassed me. And the teacher's like, okay, cut it out, or something like that. I'm like, you didn't even, Shay, like, literally is bad at plotting, because if that was me, I would be like, oh crap, she was on her period. It's been like, no, you did it. I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, fuck out of here. Like, I didn't do anything. Like, Shay should have denied it, but still, that was kind of funny. Although not really, because I think Esme mentioned that it was like really expensive. But Shay apologizes in the locker room, and Esme says, like a witty remark, she says that almost makes up for the $235 skirt. And then she gives her a present. She does have a gift for you. And then she she brings out a box, and it says adult briefs, and she says, since you're the bigger person, haha. And so just these little comments between them, um, which is interesting. And so next thing we see them running cross country, and actually before that, I think Frankie and Shay kind of talk, and Shay kind of says, about they're just talking about periods and stuff. And I mean, I really don't know nothing about periods, to be honest, but I guess it's kind of interesting to learn more about it, I guess. And that females kind of, even though it's their own body, they still feel like it's disgusting, and they just have to learn to accept themselves. And that's pretty cool because I'm sure like when girls first go through puberty and like menstruation and all that, it's new to them and they might feel disgusting and weird about it. So that was really interesting. Um, and so after Shay wins the race, Shay wins the race, and there's like a whole bunch of like blood under her legs, and Zig is like, "What the heck?" And then Tiny also notices. He's like, "Are you guys all in sync?" And Lil Shay just makes a remark saying, "Hey, it's just pain. It was kind of like a mark of accepting like her periods." So that was interesting. And Esme has another comment, says, "Is it Shark Week already?" And then Shay says, "Actually, that was kind of funny." So she's taking it, head on, and she can take it. So that's kind of cool to see. So next, we're in next storyline. We're in history class, and they're talking about like history and stuff and whatnot. And Jonah talks about suicide bombers, and he has like a question. And then everyone looks at Goldi. I'm like, wow. And so Goldi is like, why is everyone looking at me? And then Zig makes like a remark like about Muslims being suicide bombers. And then Rasha, who is like her new friend, not new, like a family friend, one of the Syrians who have come to Degrassi, and so she kind of like saves her and says, that pretty much like all Muslims are the same, and they don't condone, Islam doesn't condone death or whatever. And so after that, Goldie thanks her for saving her, and then Rasha is like, "Hey, you should invite your friends to hang out, because I don't want you to always feel like you have to hang out with me." And then Goldie kind of hesitates, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And I think we really realize like outside of like her duties, like on the volleyball team or like in student council, Goldie really doesn't have any ride or die friends. So she invites council members and Winston's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good at charades." And Zoe's intrigued that Russia's going to be there. So they play charades, and then Goldie guesses it. Winston goes for a high five, and she can't touch him because she can't touch boys. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. And then it reminds me of, I guess, like when you go to like a Muslim restaurant, and like if you're female there, like they won't hand you the change like a normal person. Like they'll just put it on the counter for you to take it because they can't. I don't know, like some Somali restaurant I went to, something like that. But anyways, I didn't know that um, they felt like that way with touching men, so that's kind of interesting. Um, but they kind of have like this little tiff because they kind of like talk about the Quran and like not being able to touch boys, and then Winston asks, what do you think about gays?" And then she says, "Well, it says that it's a sin." Zoe takes offense, and she's like, "I'm gonna go." Winston goes, and then Rasha kind of like clashes with her, and she's pretty much saying like, just because you don't have to follow everything doesn't mean like you're less of a Muslim. But Goldi thinks you have to follow every single rule of the Quran. For me personally, I don't know anything about the Quran, but it was interesting. Just as personally, for me, growing up as a Christian, having similar values. Well, not really similar, but I get it. With like religion, you kind of feel tied down. It's like, do you like pick or choose, or like do you follow every little thing? And really, it's all for everyone. So I think it all goes for most religions. So um, next morning, Rasha doesn't have her hijab on, and she's kind of like, "Hey, I'm not going to school with it." And Goldie tries to make up with like some bagels and stuff, but doesn't really work out. Rasha's still mad at her. So in the bathroom, Goldi takes off her hijab, and she goes out in the hallway. And this is the first time I think we've seen her without her hijab, which is kind of interesting. And so she goes outside, and she kind of has this smile on her face. I'm like, wow, maybe she like feels like herself. But slowly she like retreats and like goes back, and then um, later in the episode she talks to Rasha about it, and they kind of like talk about like her being in Syria. She never really wore the hijab until ISIS came and ruined everything. She said they were very liberal and she wore like bikinis outside, and you know everything was different. And then ISIS came and she had to wear her hijab and be someone who she wasn't. So Rasha wearing her not wearing her hijab is like great for her, and there's no and Goldi wearing it is completely hers. So that's kind of cool to see. And for me personally, I didn't know what to expect with this storyline because we've never really seen much of Goldi, but I really enjoyed it, and we actually know more about her. And I know people think she's like an SJW, blah blah blah, but at least we know a little bit more about Goldi. And even though up until this point never really cared for her character because I thought she was, well, an SJW, and also the fact that when Frankie got in trouble, she kind of like pointed fingers, even though Goldie was right there with her, drawing the zoo animals. But that's all in the past. It's all in the past, guys. It's all in the past. Um, and to our final storyline, we have Miles going through old photos of Tristan. Obviously, he still misses him, and I'm really concerned about Tristan's state. But I mean, I do think he'll wake up, but I'm not sure what state. Now, I had this half prediction that he might get amnesia, but maybe something close to that is like maybe he'll be better, but he won't be the same Tristan. Like going through like physical trauma can change someone's mental state, not just physical state, and maybe he won't be the same Tristan. Anyways, but enough about that. He gets an oof chat from Lola with like the filter. He laughs, um, and we've kind of seen this like they ever since they connected in episode 1. They've kind of had this like little friendship connection, and yeah, I'll get into that later. But pretty much Lola brings flowers and says, "Hey, can you take this to Tristan?" He's like, "Yeah, I wasn't planning on going." And then Lola swoops in and saves him and says he can't because he's serving at my restaurant. And Zoe's like, "Okay." And Lola's like, "Actually, I do need you to help me with serving food." So we're at the restaurant where Lola works at. Still don't remember the name. I'm still for the dot. Like we've left the dot. Well, we still go to the dot sometimes, but for the most now we have two restaurants, the dot and Lola's restaurant. I believe maybe it's a family business. I'm not sure, but the dot has history. I love the dot. Um, but yeah. Anyways, enough about that nonsense. So Miles is there serving food. Um, and of course, whenever you're working at a restaurant, you have to see someone you don't like, and he sees Esme and Zig. I'm actually not sure how Zig feels about Miles, but I know Esme and Miles have a past, and so she makes Esme again with the comments. She loves making these comments, and she's like, I see you've moved on with the feisty. She says something about like him moving on from Tristan to Lola, and he pretty much says they're just friends. I know you don't have experience with being just friends with the opposite sex, and it was a pretty witty remark. And so after that, he kind of gets pissed off, and he tells Lola like, "Does it make me a bad boyfriend if I'm not by his side the whole time?" And she's like, "No, you need bathroom breaks." Like, haha, funny moment. And that's enough of that. And then trying to think. And then in class, um, Zoe confronts him and's like, "Are the rumors true?" And he's like, "No, like what rumors?" "And you hooking up with Lola." I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, literally, they haven't done anything. They've chatted a few times, and I've talked, but I mean, I didn't know it was that big of a deal. Although you can sense this might be going in two ways: they either hook up or be friends. And they seem like cool friends because we've not really seen them talk before, except for that one time where Miles like sent her like a picture of his junk, and then Tiny like wanted to beat him up. But that's in the past. That was back when Miles was under Esme's spell. We've evolved. Like, come on, guys. So I do like them as friends, but people think they're hooking up, And yeah, Miles says they're just friends. Obviously, they've never done anything. Then he visits Tristan in the hospital. He has a breakdown, and he's like, "It'd be cool if you woke up. Please, wake up." Like Eric Osborne literally is a fantastic actor, and I think we've seen from like the end of TNG, we knew like it was either gonna be like the leaders of the new generation or like Miles, Zoe, and Maya. And so like, but we've really seen through next class like Miles has really grown as a character. And if we look at this being the third season of next class, I think Miles is probably like the biggest character. And I don't mind that. I actually like him. I thought he was really annoying. Before I didn't mind him, and then I thought he was annoying. But if you really look at his growth, he's come full circle, which I really enjoy. And so Zoe comes in and comforts him. It's really heartbreaking one because Tristan is still like in his coma, and like Miles really needs him. And so like he's breaking down. He needs him, and so that happens. So at the end, Zoe suggests that Miles can be in the play because he needs an outlet, and so Grace and Jonah are apprehensive at first, but then Miles says, "Hey, this story about this guy with his boyfriend and goes in an accident, and then he befriends a girl named Hope who helps him, and then Grace asks if they hook up. He says no, and obviously I think it's based on Lola helping him. So I really do think that Lola and Miles would have a great friendship, but I mean, I just have this weird feeling that something might happen, but I hope I'm wrong because I mean, her and Frankie being friends, and then Miles, I don't know, but let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Blah, can't speak. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, share. Let me know what you guys thought about previous episodes. My previous episodes are on my channel. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. It's been your boy Neon Diamond 101. Peace.